My name is Susie Lend from Ask Resource Center, and I will be hosting this webinar. Before we begin, I'd like to take a moment to share about Ask Resource Center. Ask is a family-focused nonprofit organization whose mission is to empower the families of people with disabilities that we serve. We provide individualized support, collaborative advocacy, training, resources, and leadership development for Iowa families of children with disabilities or special health care needs, ages birth to 26, and the professionals who serve them. We thank you so much for joining us today for the webinar entitled Living, Everything You Need to Know About Host Homes. The presenters are Abby Barker with Mosaic and Joan Baumert, who is the guardian within a host home. All right, I am going to go ahead and introduce our speakers today. First, Abigail Barker is from Mosaic in Central Iowa. She's the Central Iowa Area Director. Abby is the Director for Mosaic at Home, where her leadership focuses on delivering personalized services and achieving the best possible outcomes for every client. With a social work degree and 8 years of experience, Abigail champions strategic growth to meet community needs, overseeing services for more than 250 adults in the Des Moines Metro. And next, I would like to introduce you to Joan. Joan Baumert is a lifelong legal guardian and dedicated mother to 3 adults with disabilities. Her trust in Mosaic spans nearly 25 years, built on the quality care provided to her son with Down syndrome, which made the choice clear for her 2 special needs granddaughters. Today, Joan shares her unique perspective as a long-term family partner and passionate advocate for compassionate care. So welcome, both of you.
Hopefully, my goal today is that you all leave with a little bit more education about host homes. And then, again, at the end, if there's any questions or feedback, hopefully we're able to answer those. So what is a host home? In Iowa, a host home is a community-based living arrangement where an adult with a disability, the member, lives in a private home with a caregiver or the host. So member, client, those are kind of interchangeable with the service line. The setting for a host home is that the home is owned and or rented by the host. We at Mosaic call our caregivers independent contractors. So you may hear that term, or host home provider is also a very common term that we use as well. But the host home provider, the independent contractor, the person, it's in their family home. So, not the home that's owned by the service agent. So in this case, Mosaic, or the member. So, and this must be the home provider's primary residence. So that's also kind of a key for the host home model specifically. Individuals that we're able to support in the host home model are those on any 3 of the Medicaid waivers that currently exist in the state. Those 3 being your ID waiver, so your intellectually disabled waiver, your brain injury waiver, and then HAB is a common term, but the mental health waiver in the state of Iowa are the 3 waivers that we currently support under that host home model. And then, of course, individuals in the host home receiving Medicaid services and funding, and then some sort of an income. So whether that be SSI, SSDI, they're employed and they receive income that way. Those are kind of those very base level requirements for the host home. Host homes are an alternative, as it states here, to group homes, group residence, or what is also known as congregated living. Some of us may be familiar with like a traditional group home setting where there's maybe 4 individuals supported with rotating hourly staff, and less common now, your ICFIDs, where there's up to 8 individuals at a time as well. So really the host home model is very focused on that one person and that individualized service for them. So kind of a little bit about the service. Hosts and host homes provide what we call supported community living, SCL, if you're familiar with that term. And then, again, falls under that home and community-based service line. So, you know, what are we doing in those homes? What is a host home? What is the kind of the day-to-day goal and the purpose? Again, it's very highly personalized. Working with them on daily life skills, those sorts of things. Medication management, as it is a healthcare service as well. Medical appointments is a big one. We often see individuals needing consistency and support in those areas. Transportation and community integration. So transportation is a big responsibility of that host home provider to ensure that individual is supported to and from where they need to and would like to be. And then of course social skills and emotional support. More in the host home, a high focus is on community integration. So those are some of the things that people come to us when they're looking for a host home. So and then noted here is matching. So kind of Mosaic's secret sauce, if you will, is really what we call our matching process. And that individualized matching process that we work very closely with the team, families, case managers to find the right host home for the person in service. Why a host home? So again, people choose where and with whom they live. So kind of back to that matching process. In our traditional settings that a lot of us are used to, there's kind of an opening and, that's kind of where that person may end up based on their need or the urgency surrounding that. But in a host home, we're able to be much more strategic and look at what that person's specific needs and wants are when it comes to a host or a family and match them appropriately. People participate in community life. Like I said, community integration is a big focus for host homes and something that we naturally see. Our individuals are just naturally much more integrated in the community as they're, more independent and working alongside the host on getting groceries and getting their meds and going to appointments and doing things that are offered in the community, the state fair, or various different things. And then, another big one is people experience continuity and security. So with it being one host or a family, we're having much less staff turnover, inconsistency, those sorts of things. So that person can really learn and, become the expert essentially on that person that's they're supporting. So as noted here, in a 2021 study founded that when these three things are present in a person's life, it brings substantially decreased 74% exactly in emergency department visits, which is very true. So a lot of times, staff or different people don't really know what to do. So the first thing is, ER visits, whether it's health or behavioral health related. But in a host home, we see that much less because that host, really knows that person and maybe can act, on the front end rather than resulting to the ER. So that is a really cool number and something that we, are constantly looking at when it comes to the host home again, and why that may be the preferred model for a lot of individuals. Mosaic and host homes. So Mosaic specifically, we have offered host homes for more than 35 years. In the state of Iowa, we have had host homes since 2009. And Mosaic, as an agency, we're in 12 states. All of those states have various different service lines that they offer. But Mosaic was, yes, the first provider to offer host homes in Iowa. So that's very cool. Like I said, since 2009, we've been fortunate to provide host homes. Currently today, just in our central Iowa, so where I don't know where everybody's joining from, but where I'm located, we support, I believe the number is 254 clients in the host home setting, but over 600 throughout the state of Iowa. So we have grown. We are in 66 counties. Last I checked, it's ever changing. So our hope is to be in every county in Iowa and be able to reach everybody that there is a need for. But in the last decade, I'd say in the last 5 years, especially the pandemic, we have seen a major increase in the host home model, and that being the more desired person-centered model that is offered. So, like I had previously stated, with the host homes, we are able to support persons on the ID, the BI, and the mental health waiver as they stand today. As we know, there could be changes, but those are, as we are today. So the biggest thing, when looking at maybe younger individuals who are transitioning, is really ensuring that waiver process has started, because we are 99% Medicaid funded. That is really our primary source for payment for the MCO and coverage of those services. So all persons in a host home must be 18 years or older. That is a common question that we receive. However, we can and have started that process prior to 18. Typically, when they're turning 17, or we're about 6 months out from that 18th birthday, we can definitely start that process and begin the matching so they can start to become familiar and meet a potential host. Host homes versus group settings. Kind of touched on some of this, but again, I think it's a good call out to be able to see and visualize the differences. So again, in a host home, that model takes, that care takes place in a family home, just like all of us live in. So it's kind of, that natural family versus that group setting, where it's, 3 different shifts and different staffs, and those sorts of things. People choose where and with whom they live. So again, back to that matching process, we really pride ourselves in that, and we take a lot of attention and care to ensuring that person or family is involved in the selection of who that host may be, being able to see that home, with their own eyes and spend time with them, and really assess if that would be the best fit. And really, our hope is it's an extension of family, that it's not necessarily our hope isn't that it's not replacing, but it's in addition to that person serves already formed network. So greater independence. Mosaic really strives for the least restrictive. Host homes in general are a less restrictive model. So really our goal as a team, in conjunction with case managers and the IDT is, what can we do to mitigate any restrictions and allow the person in the host home to have as much independence as is safely assessed for them, and to reach their goals, whether that be employment or, friends, different things like that. So higher degree of personalization, again, and higher rates of satisfaction. So overall, with the host home, there just is naturally a lot more individualism and personalization that comes with that model. Again, starting really at that matching process. And, it's really great to see, we've had people that have very similar interests or maybe not similar interests. And it's just really awesome to see those relationships build for that person and for that host as well. More frequent community outings because they're not group activities. So that is something that, we hear maybe when it's a family member or a guardian case manager, this person really struggles with maybe sharing attention, if you will, or they don't like the activities that their peers like. So maybe they're not as, apt to go on a group outing or something. They'd rather do something with just one staff. So in the host home, it's really all about that person, right? So, um, you know, it is also important to mention along this topic that in a host home, there the max amount of individuals served is two. So unlike a group home where you can have four or an ICF, there's up to eight. There only can be two people served at any given time in a host home. And for Mosaic, again, back to that matching, we call those second client homes. We take those very seriously and try to match, those two clients and that host, to make sure that's going to be a good fit for everybody. Um, if that's a place where everybody's at, that they're ready to welcome a second client, so that when it comes to community things, they're able to enjoy those together, etc. So Mosaic does offer lots of different opportunities for community engagement, whether that's something we're hosting or just different things in the community. We send out monthly and quarterly opportunities for individuals to be involved and be engaged, as much or as little as they would like to in those community group activities. Again, group homes, kind of host homes versus group homes, because that's what a lot of us are maybe familiar with, or they're at home currently. We do see that a lot too, individuals coming from family homes. So um, consistent support from one person brings multiple benefits, like we've talked about. So health is really a big one. We often see, like noted, weight loss and reduction in medications, which is huge. I countless individuals who are struggling, whether it be just taking their medications, healthy diet. When there's shared living involved, often we're eating whatever, or we're eating what everyone else wants, and it's not necessarily tailored. So we do and have seen significant health improvements for individuals in the host home settings versus your historical group home settings. Negative behaviors lessen or disappear. So some of those more challenging behaviors that may coincide with peer-to-peer or inconsistency in their day-to-day, we often do see a reduction, or we have a plan to help reduce or lessen those behaviors in the host home with the support of that host and the team. Um, so and then again, higher incidences of new community relationships. So really, they have more maybe opportunities to try new things or meet new people. For Mosaic specifically, we're very fortunate. We have a lot of host homes that have kind of come together and created their own little groups. So, whether it's coffee or bowling or Legos or books, they've really made their own little community, which is really awesome to see. So with Mosaic, we do have the support and work alongside our nursing team. We do have a behavioral support specialist team that we work alongside as well with our quality team. And then we also have our community relations team, to really work in tandem alongside the client and the host family to ensure all of these needs are being met. Mosaic team, we do conduct monthly in-home visits. I know that's often a question that we get. So part of our policy and procedure is that we, as a Mosaic team, are in the home at least once a month, visiting with the client and the home provider, checking in on how things are going. And of course, case management stays involved. Anybody that would be involved with that person's IDT, is we're in communication with, and can hold IDT meetings at any time or as needed if we feel that those things are warranted. But again, a question that we get sometimes is, will their case manager stay, or those things, or any of their current providers? Absolutely. Our goal is to keep everything, as much the same as everybody would like. If there is a need to seek alternative physicians, or maybe we don't have a therapist yet or something, our teams are also there to support um, families and guardians in the direction to get those services lined up for that individual. This is just a great host home testimony from a provider. As you can see, they are in our Colorado agency, but it is just one that we love to highlight. Tiffany has been a host home provider in Colorado since 1995, and she has been with the same individual all of those years. So Stephen, and she says he came to us in June of 1995 to join our family, and he's been with us ever since. Um, Stephen has a profound effect on the family and extended family. They love him as a brother. Because Stephen has always been here when both my daughter and my son Logan grew up. They are more loving toward those with disabilities and all diverse people. And my grandchildren love him so much. They call him Uncle Steve. So we have many stories like this in our network. People who were with the host before they had children, and then they had children, and they've, grown up with them. So I always tell people when they're seeking host homes, if you have somebody in your network that currently supports your loved one, or we have a lot of sibling host homes, or extended family host homes, or staff that have worked with somebody for like Tiffany 30 years. Please come to us, talk to us. We're happy to explore that option for them, if that's the desired route that everybody wants to take, because there are some really great stories. People who've worked in our group homes that have a really great relationship with their person, and they go to a host home. So, there's a lot of opportunities and possibilities with host homes that we want everybody to be, aware of. So yeah, that's just a really great story that we love to share. So now we will hear from Joan. Joan is a family member, and like mentioned at the beginning, Joan has been with Mosaic and worked with Mosaic for just shy of 25 years. So I'll kind of let her share a little bit about her story with Mosaic.
First of all, thank you for even being here and listening to all of this. I love Mosaic. That's about 99% of it. I have a Brian who's Down syndrome, who is 46 years old. He has been in a host home with Kyle. And I'm going to say it's right at 25, 20 years for sure. Anyway, Julia is the older of the two girls, and she is now 24. She's in a host home, and Cindy is her host home provider. They have complete different personalities than anybody else you've ever known. They were matched perfectly. And then there's Leah. This picture is a little bit older, as you can tell. I'm not the spring chicken of the picture anymore. Leah's now 18 years old. She's also in a host home. And the two girls are both my granddaughters, same mom, same dad, and different as night and day. So therefore, their providers are different as well. I wish I could have gone through when Abby was talking and comment along the different slides that were popping up. The personality differences. Ryan is the personality that is everything is by the book. He is his days start and end exactly the same. That's the way he likes it. That's the way he wants it. Kyle is his provider, and he teaches Ryan's new school skills continuously. He is now able to make his entire breakfast by himself. But along with that, for Ryan, he has the personality of wanting to go and wanting to do, even though he works, obviously has a job. And um, he has his dream job. He gets to be a dishwasher. I know that may sound strange to some of you, but for Ryan, that's what he's always wanted to do, and he's been doing it now for like 4 or 5 years at Hy-Vee, and he is a truly appreciated employee there for him as well. Regarding personality differences, if you tell Ryan that there's going to be a dance, he's there. Abby can attest to that. He is Johnny on the spot when the music starts, and he loves to dance. Kyle provides what Ryan needs, and that's what Host Home is all about. Being able to provide what we as parents or guardians or grandparents, we can teach them, we can advise them, we can show them the right way, but it takes somebody else to really let them have the life that they want, that they need, to show them that there's other options besides mom or dad or grandma or grandpa. And that's probably one of the reasons that I love Host Home. Julia is the one in the gold in the picture. As I said, she's 24 years old. She is personality plus. She is outgoing. If her job were to be a Walmart greeter, she would know everybody's name every minute they walk in. I don't care if it's next week, next hour, in 2 years, she's going to know their name. She's going to know their name, their dog's name, their grandchild's name. You name it, she's going to know it. And she doesn't forget a thing. Literally. Sometimes you have to be careful what she learns. um, she is a hostess at a restaurant right now, and the owner loves her. Um, she is on the go all the time. She makes everybody that walks in feel like they were supposed to be there. That's kind of Julia's main theme of her life. She makes everybody important. Cindy is her host home provider, and Cindy allows Julia to be Julia. She is a little bit loud. She's a little bit boisterous at times, but she has the most contagious laugh of anybody I know. But also Cindy provides love, provides the coddling, provides the direction. Very calmly for Julia is what is needed. She may touch her arm, say, okay, well, what about this? And kind of guide her in her communication on to another level. Leah. Leah is now 18. Leah and Julia, like I said, they're like Mutt and Jeff, just opposite of each other. I raised both of the girls. I used to have to pay Julia to go outside. She just was a TV kid. Leah, I used to have to pay her to come inside because she would rather be outside. In fact, she told me one day, Granny, I know it's November, but can we go out and maybe rake some leaves or something outside? Did I tell you she's my outside kid? She rides horses. She's in high school. She's very, very active. I'm really anxious to see what she ends up doing for a profession. As much as she loves horses, it wouldn't surprise me at all if she ended up on a farm somewhere where she could be with the animals continuously. Her host home providers is a mom and dad. They had previously adopted 4 kids from Korea. So they're very much into kids. And Leah's going to be the last one. They make sure that she gets to all of the school functions. We just went to Wells Fargo Arena in Des Moines, where they were at a unified basketball team, and that she's a part of. And it wasn't just the mom and dad. It was two other, no, three other family members and their wives and their kids that all came. This isn't a new family for Leah. And this is something that her heart needs. Um, I know that Susie asked y'all to maybe ask some questions, or I would be happy to answer any questions at all. But let me just tell you that, sorry, getting emotional here. Mosaic offers my kids their own life. You know, I never had a normal kid. Um, there's nothing normal about Down syndrome except that he's 46 years old and he still loves to hug mama. Um, but we all want our kids to grow up, leave home, go to school, go to college, whatever it is, they have to have their own life. Mosaic offers that. With their host home, they offer the child to get up and go out of the home that they had been used to, or out of the um, living arrangement. Ryan had been in an apartment with two other guys. It used to have to be dependent on everybody agreeing that they wanted to go to Walmart. Well, they don't have to do that with a host home. You either want to go to Walmart or you don't. But the provider may help him just, it's time to go get groceries. Okay, let's sit down and make a list. It's like the guardian without being the legal guardian, showing them the right way to interact with people, teaching them new skills, allowing them to be them. That's it. Allowing the people to be themselves. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing, Joan. You really were able to help us see the real personal side of the benefits of a host home, and your heartfelt presentation was just lovely. So thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and move us to our next slide. Abby and Joan are available for any questions that you might have at this point about host homes. So please go ahead and use the chat and ask away. Okay, here's the first one. What is the responsibilities of a host home provider?
Yeah, great question. So any of our host home providers, they are, like I mentioned, they're technically contracted with Mosaic. So they agree to a year-to-year contract with us. And, those responsibilities are outlined in there, but the main responsibility, of course, is oversight of the person in service and implementation of their plan. So that some people call them care plans, person-centered service plans. Anything that is in there, they are responsible for the implementation and oversight of that plan. So everything from medications to appointments to goals. Like Joan said, Ryan, now cooking his own breakfast. At one point, that probably was a goal of his, to learn kitchen skills or safety or whatever the case may be. So, they obviously there's requirements for the host home as a person, but the responsibility is truly that 24-hour day-to-day implementation and oversight of that specific person's person-centered plan. So,
Thank you for that. The
mhm.
next question is, can parents be host home providers for their own child?
Yes, no. Currently in the state of Iowa, parents and legal guardians are not allowed to be host home providers um, without, there are avenues that can be explored, but as a general rule, no.
Okay, thank you. How long is the process for finding a match and getting approved by the MCO?
Yeah, so as far as the Mosaic side of getting a match, typically I would say after we have reviewed and accepted the client and we start that matching process, a good rule of thumb I'd say anywhere from 2 to 4 months, give or take. We've had I've worked a match for a year. Um, that person was at home, so. Um, it can go quicker or it can go longer. It's really person to person on their needs and the visits and things like that.
Thank you. I have two questions that are pretty similar, so I'll put them together. How would you apply if you were interested in having your son or daughter in a host home? What cities do you serve? How would a family individual start the process to get a host home provider?
Absolutely, yeah. So I shared some information with Ask Resource. One of those was our application, but I can also share. We have an Iowa referrals email that Susie, I can share that with you, or I can put it in the chat. But really, getting in touch with your case manager if your loved one has an assigned case manager. If not, um, also we will share with you our website resource, and there's um, a box off to the right that you can submit an inquiry, and our admissions coordinators will reach out to you to gain some more information. So there's a lot of avenues to making a referral, and I can make sure you guys have those resources.
Great. I'll keep looking in online while you're answering the question, see if I can find that link, but we'll work together to get that link in the chat. Okay, let's see here. We have a lot of questions. This is awesome. Do the host home providers receive training of any kind?
Yeah, great question. So our host home providers, they must obtain and keep current any state of Iowa regulated training. So your CPR, mandatory reporting, medication manager, those sorts of things. But we do provide person-specific training. So we would train them on their plan, any behavior supports, those sorts of things. If your loved one receives the mental health waiver, their their first year, the provider is required to take 24 hours of training and then 12 hours after that. So we offer a lot of different training through Mosaic and or just resources for providers to access different training, whether it be in the community or virtually. So um, we definitely have required training, and then there's obviously optional in-person center training that we offer as well.
Great, thank you for that. Um, can someone provide a host home if they already have a child on the ID waiver and are their caregiver?
The short answer is yes. Um, the short answer is yes. There's a lot of different. It's something that we'd have to look at, but um, to my knowledge, there's no like hard and fast no to that answer, I guess.
Okay, it might be an individual thing. I'm going to go ahead
Yeah.
and there's a link to your services here in the chat. And so maybe that will help. Oh, you put some in there too.
Yep,
So
I
we
linked
have
the
two
one
links now.
directly to our website there.
Okay, perfect.
Yep,
Okay, thank you.
no problem.
Do you have families who do a host home that speaks Spanish? Yeah.
We um, we had one, and that is an area that we're consistently looking for our hosts or families that are bilingual. So that's a great question. Bilingual and people who know ASL sign language. That's another one that we do look for and ask when we're meeting with people. We have one that's currently active, but beyond that, that is an area that we would like to grow in and have more.
Great. Do host home providers receive respite or time away? 24-hour care is a lot.
Yeah, great question. Yes, as a home provider, respite looks a little bit different. We call it relief. So that home provider is responsible for finding their own relief, or we as Mosaic are able to maybe offer some options for relief for them. So relief can look like a spouse, a home provider's best friend, different things. So, and the home provider then pays the relief for that time away. So it looks a little bit different than your traditional respite when it comes to the payment side. But that is another question that we do ask when we're interviewing home providers. Who is in your network? Who would you have for relief? And obviously clients can have what we would consider natural supports. So like Joan would be a natural support for her loved ones, should, their home provider be away or something like that. So that's kind of the
Would you like to
difference.
add on to that, Joan?
Yes, I would like to answer and add to that. Thank you, Abby, for that introduction about parents or homes. I have all my three kids home every Christmas, every holiday. Just because your children live somewhere else in a host home does not mean that you are excluded from their life. I do, I take everybody to the zoo every 4th of July. That's just something that we've always done. Every Christmas, every Easter, they have to take Granny to the state fair for my funnel cake every year. I refuse to bake my own birthday cake, so they have to go with me to the state fair to get me a funnel cake. I know that sounds stupid, but what I'm trying to get across to you is you're not losing your kids. You're just providing them their own life as if they were getting up, going out the door and having their own life, but they still get to come home.
I think I'll direct this next question to you, Joan. The question is family required to spend time with their child that's in a host home? So are you required to spend the time with, I'm trying to think
I
of
am
what you
not
mean.
required,
Okay.
but I would like to also preface that with saying I'm also their guardian. And to be their guardian, I am in total understanding of where they are, what they're doing, interact with them. And that is a court guardianship paper commitment that you make as a guardian. So does Mosaic require it? No. I've never been asked by Mosaic to require anything, but because I am their legal guardian, I do.
Would you like to
Yeah,
add on
that's
to
a
that, Abby?
great point, Joan, and great call out. We have individuals, unfortunately, that don't have any family, and that is something, you know, um, Joan and her family are a great example of what we hope for everyone. But so when we are doing that matching process, we're very upfront with that host. Hey, this person, they maybe have a court appointed guardian, but beyond that, holidays or things. So we're very transparent about that with that home provider, just so they can make that decision for their family too. Is that something that is going to work with them? But like Joan said, there's no limit. We have people that go on weeks long vacations with their families or with their host. I mean, there's no, yeah, the sky's the limits when it comes in. We really encourage that as well. So, yeah, great question.
Thank you for that. Can you repeat the 3 different waivers that are required?
Yeah, so the waivers that we're able to support would be the ID waiver, so the intellectually disabled waiver, the brain injury waiver, or the mental health waiver, which is the habilitative waiver, HAB for short. So any three of those we're able to support.
Great, thank you.
Mhm.
Here's the next question. What excludes a member from being a good candidate for a host home placement? Severity of care, criminal history, behavioral difficulties, certain diagnoses, etc.
Yeah, so for every referral we get, we have our admissions coordinator, and they review that. There are things that I guess could disqualify, but really it is case by case. We really do look at each referral individually. Um, Something that maybe would disqualify, criminal history is definitely something that we would look at. How recent was that? People who are incarcerated currently maybe are experiencing, homelessness or things. Um, Frequent emergency room visits for behavior, those sorts of things. But not to say it would disqualify them. We would just definitely want to have a better understanding of that, before, proceeding. Would do an intake screening. So every referral, our admissions coordinator goes out and meets personally and learns more. So, um, there are some, um, not necessarily diagnoses, health wise. We're really able to accommodate a lot of health needs in the host home. Um, Really, it is, I guess, more of that behavioral aspect of just their safety and that provider safety and safety in the community. Because the host home model is a less restrictive model, those are the things that we would look at. So, locks or restraints or those sorts of things. Again, not that we wouldn't consider it, but we'd have to look at that.
It'd be a definite conversation, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. But yeah, that's a great question. Yeah.
Okay, well, please let us know if you have other questions. But while we're looking for that, I want to let you know we have a few comments. Thank you, Joan. I love the many things you said. So that was from Pam. And then April says, good point on the guardianship and maintaining a relationship. So just a few comments. So thank you so much for those. I'm going to go ahead and bring us on home here. Um, so thank you so much for joining us for today's webinar.